every area of your life is never a bad idea. Let me say that again. Getting better in every area of your life is never a bad idea. In order for you to get better, though, you've got to be willing to deal with what you need to deal with. Good morning to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you so much for committing your ways to evaluating and assessing. Everybody, everybody needs to take time to look at themselves and ask themselves, how can I be better? How can I improve? The goal is to get better with age. Am I right? The goal is to get better with age. Now, remember this, there is always room for improvement. Write that down. There is always room for improvement. Effective living is a journey, it's not a destination, right? Effective living is a journey, it's not a destination. You're on a journey. You're on a journey. And every day you can identify things that you need to adjust and deal with that you may have not dealt with before that could be holding you back from maximizing your potential. I want to remind you that you have untapped potential. I want to remind you that you have something to offer, and your mere existence is an indication that God's not done with you. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, Coach Deborah, one of the things that I've noticed, Miss Jocelyn, is that there are some things that handcuffs us, that locks us into a corner and holds us back from becoming our best selves. What are some of those things? Well, I'm glad you asked. On this day 6 of February, I want you to start looking at the areas of your life that you have not looked at before. Most people, Miss Sybil, haven't realized the damaging or the hole that shame, guilt, and past hurt has locked them into. The whole concept of having lived a while allows us all to know we would go through some form of shame. We will find ourselves dealing with some level of guilt. We will find ourselves having some experiences of hurt. But if you're taking notes, write this down. Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. There are so many people, Coach Deborah, who are not dealing with the shame. They're not dealing with the guilt. They're not dealing with the hurt. And what happens is you can run as fast as you want to run, okay? And you can put up a facade as much as you desire to. But if you don't get to the root causes of why you're not growing and glowing at the level that you should, you could find yourself stuck. Jamal, it is the goal of every individual to identify what's keeping them back from elevating. What's keeping me back from having joy? What's keeping me back from having peace? What's keeping me back from of my life? Here's what I got to remind you. Here's what I got to remind you. Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. It's all about the response. It's all about the response. Now, for those of us that are seasoned within this community, for those of you that are watching me and you've faithfully been showing up, watching Effective Living, you live a while, you will realize life is going to punch you in the face. Stuff is going to happen. Stuff is going to happen. But the question is, how have you been responding to what's happening? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to start paying attention to what you're feeding. what you're feeding. I want you to pay attention to what you're feeding, and I want you to pay attention to what you're also in denial of. I want you to pay attention to what you're in denial of. If you find yourself having dealt with some things that has caused you to deal with a certain level of shame, I want you to know that it is the will of the Lord for you to be free. The Bible says, whom the Son set free is free indeed. You don't need to be imprisoned by shame, guilt, or hurt. Now, oftentimes, a lot of people say, well, you know what? I don't know if I'm struggling with shame, Josh. I don't know if I'm struggling with any form of guilt. Let's talk about a few different forms of shame. Feeling shame of past mistakes and failures. It's real, ladies and gentlemen. Being ashamed of one's appearance or body image or due to social standards and personal insecurities. Okay, feeling ashamed of personal situations and circumstances like financial struggles and family issues. It is something that people deal with. Experiencing shame over past trauma and abuse, leading to feeling of unworthiness or self-blame. Shame is real. I would not have a platform called Effective Living and be responsible if I would not bring up a subject like this. Because here's the deal. We're talking creating a life we don't need a vacation from. We're talking about finding the place where we belong in the earth, where we have peace that passeth all understanding. It is learning how to live on what I call elevated living. Okay? Shame is real. People deal with it all the time. And sometimes they don't even let anybody know that they're battling with different forms of shame. Well, let's go into guilt. Let's go into guilt. This morning, I want you to look at what form of guilt could you be carrying that's causing you to not have the joy in your marriage, the guilt that is causing you not to parent your child well, the guilt that is causing you not to venture out and do something great like you knew. Ah, man, you knew that you had it in you, but clearly you're not embracing the opportunities that's before you. Guilt, feeling guilt for hurting someone's feelings or causing harm unintentionally, leading to a sense of remorse and a desire to make amends. Guilt is real. Guilt is real. Guilt over not meeting social or family standards, such as career achievement, relational milestones, leading to a feeling of inadequacies. Guilt is real. Watch this. Several guilt feelings. Feeling guilty for surviving a trauma event when others did not, leading to feeling of unworthiness and self-doubt. Guilt. Why did I survive? I can't believe this. I feel bad. This is real stuff. This is real stuff. Now, here's the deal. I believe that help is available to all of us, but I believe that help cannot help you until you become honest with yourself to say, I am dealing with a level of shame that I need to get some help. If you can't address it for yourself, go get professional help. I believe in professional help. I believe in professional help. Guilt over prioritizing one's own need or well-being over others, leading to self-sacrifice and neglect of personal boundaries. You can't say no because you feel guilty. There are a lot of people, ladies and gentlemen, who have to look at their lives and address the level of shame. What you've been carrying is shame. And what it's done, it has imprisoned you. What you've been carrying is guilt. And what it's done, it has imprisoned you. Now I want to talk about hurt. I want to talk about hurt because if you're taking notes this morning, before we leave in 3 minutes, I want you to write this down. You've heard it before. It's worth saying again. Hurting people hurt people. Okay? Let me say that again. Hurting people hurt people. Write that down. You need to get that, because emotional hurt from betrayal or abandonment in relationship leads to distrust, fear, and a lack of intimacy oftentimes. Emotional hurt, it happens all the time. But there are so many people who are not addressing emotional hurt. Watch this: hurt from past rejections or failures, leading to a fear of taking risks or pursuing goals. Some people will never try, they'll never go at it because of their high level of past hurt that is still lingering. It's still lingering. Okay? Listen, it is the will of God for you to be free. It is the will of God for you to get help. It is the will of God for you not to lie to yourself, only to know in the background, in the surface of things, that at your very core, you are not doing well. I became whole. I became better. I found myself improving in every area of my life because I chose not to live from an external standpoint. It wasn't about how it looked, it's about how it is. Okay? I'm no longer wanting to live based on how it looks. My mother said to me, be stronger than you look, because it is possible for you to put up a facade. It's possible for you to look like you got it going on when you don't quite have it going on. Now, watch this. There is hurt from past rejections and failures that lingers along, and people don't address them, and they end up affecting every area of our life. What about this? Hurt from childhood trauma and neglect, leading to difficult forming of healthy attachment and managing your emotions. For a long time, I had no clue as a man how to manage my emotions. I had no clue how to understand that emotions is good. You need to know how to express your emotion, but you also need to know what is unhealthy and you need to know what is healthy. Dealing with hurt, we're talking hurt from ongoing discrimination or oppression, leading from feeling of anger and resentment and low self-esteem. This is real, people. This is real. So this morning, I want you to go ahead and start making a commitment. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to allow myself to be imprisoned by shame. I'm not going to allow myself to be imprisoned by guilt. I'm not going to allow myself to be imprisoned by hurt. All of those things happen, and you have a right to feel the way you feel initially when you're dealing with those things. But what you need not do is, what you don't need is, you don't need them to affect your heart. What you don't need them to do is to plant themselves inside of you, that they carry themselves into new seasons of your life where you should have been free from those past hurt, past shame, and past hurt. But because you've kept carrying it, and sometimes I can say it easier than it's done, and that is, let it go. Let it go. It's easy for me to say that, but sometimes it is very difficult to let it go, even though someone is suggesting or advising you to let it go. I'm here today to tell you, you've got to learn how to let it go. You've got to learn how to address shame, guilt, and hurt as an individual, okay? I am 48 years old. I will be 49 in October. And as an individual, I have gone through shame, I've gone through guilt, and I've had my moments of hurt. And now I have gotten to a place where I said, there is no elephant in the room. There is no skeleton in the closet. I am who I am, but by the grace of God. And I'm learning how to free myself of all that would have kept me imprisoned in time past. You can't make me feel bad. I have made myself feel bad enough over the years. But what I do know is there is a way to be free from that which has held me back from being who God has created me to be. So on this beautiful Tuesday morning, I want you to do some journaling. I want you to do some praying. I want you to do some reflecting. And I want you to address, what is it that you've been carrying in the form of shame? What is it that you've been carrying in the form of guilt? What is it that you've been carrying in the form of hurt? And ask God to help you. Ask God to help you, because you know what? He will help you. Not only will he help you if you find that the struggle is so hard and is so real, even after asking God for help in prayer, go get professional help. Yeah, you heard it. You heard it from Coach Ricardo Miller. Go get professional help. Go and sit down with a therapist. And listen, just pour it all out. I remember when I made my appointment with my therapist, I came clean. Mother Wells taught me years ago, and you're going to hear me refer to this entire week. She said, come clean if you got to come rough dry. Don't be afraid to be honest. Don't be afraid to cry. Don't be afraid to go in that closet and look what is in that closet and take it out and tell yourself, there's need not be no skeleton in the closet. I'm going to take them skeleton out of the closet and bury those bad boys in a graveyard, in a cemetery, and I'm going to leave them there. If there's an elephant in the room, take the elephant out of the room and put the elephant in the wild, because you don't need that elephant lingering around your life, causing you to not feel like who you should be at any given moment. Join me back tomorrow. We're going to talk more about this, because this week I am dealing with something that I find to be a real issue in the lives of a lot of people on their journey to living life effectively. So follow the process. Come clean if you got to come rough dry. Be honest with yourself. And when you find that you're dealing with shame, hurt, and guilt, I've dealt with all of them, but you may be dealing with one or two or three of them. Whichever you find yourself at, I just want you to know you don't need to live with that. You need to address that. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk more about it again on tomorrow.